Everybody, welcome to another midweek conversation as we talk about this past Sunday's message, the follow-up readings, anything like that. So this week we've got Matthew 10, James 2, and what was the Psalm one?
It was Psalm 10, Matthew 25,
Psalm 10,
James
Matthew
2.
25, James 2. But we've got those three, some of which was referenced in the sermon, some of which wasn't, which is great because that always, I love when that happens because then, and remember the idea behind these, the weekly readings, it's not just like a suggestion, it's a, hey, do this so you can continue to study the sermon throughout the week. So I like when that happens. So before we dive in, I've got some questions, I've got some thoughts to ask you as the one who preached, but anything, any sidecars, anything that was left on the cutting room floor?
Not really anything left on the cutting room floor this time, so you can go ahead and kick it off with some thoughts.
Okay, so you gave us the three things, and I loved the, hey, this is how we should respond, and the why, right? Because it reflects God's blank. It reflects God's blank. And so you were using the Nigerian oppression of Christians and then the slaughter of Christians, the destruction of churches. And, first, hey, does this break our hearts? Such a valid question, right? We can't be cold and detached. And really tragically, it's easy to. When's the last time you turned on the news or got like a news summary email and it was like, wow, that was like 7 great headlines in a row. So first question, how do I not become numb and detached and just, of course something bad happened in Nigeria, something bad's happening in every country in the world.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate danger that we face, especially like it's hard to say that the world's not worse, but the 24-hour news cycle sure makes it feel like it sometimes. And I was just thinking about it yesterday. I was thinking about the people who the news is the first thing they turn on in the morning, first thing they turn on when they get back from work. They're checking it while they're at work, like just how inescapable it would feel. And so I think the first thing to really protect yourself from growing numb to it is asking yourself what attitude you're approaching those things with. I'm not saying never watch the news again. I'm not saying stop being up to date on what's happening overseas. I'm just saying ask yourself, okay, is this mind numbing? Am I approaching this with I just need something on in the background? Because I think that's the real danger, right? Is these stories of oppression becoming background noise to just our daily lives, right? Oh, something bad happened in Nigeria. Well, it's always something bad's always happening. On to the next story, right? Because I think that's what the news cycle can do to us sometimes is it's on to the next story every single time.
Every story gets 90 seconds and a quick quote and then move on to the next one. Yeah,
so I'd ask yourself, am I approaching this actually caring about what's happening, or am I approaching it just to be informed in kind of a vague, nebulous sense? Because if you are choosing what you're reading, choosing what you're watching for the sake of taking up their cause emotionally, then I would say you're protecting yourself from growing, just pessimistic towards it. Because otherwise it becomes something that we consume quickly, that washes over us, that is then out of our minds, and that's just the painful truth of the world we live in, the way we consume news media and stuff. I would also say, as you're watching it, are you ever pausing it? Are you ever stopping yourself? One of the things I have to do when I'm reading stuff is pause and actually consider what I just read. Pause and actually consider what I just watched. Because, it's part of what we ought to be doing. We ought to be pausing. We ought to be praying for the people as we pause and think about these things. Because, again, it just breaks up that cycle of, on to the next story, on to the next story. Especially if you're someone who consumes your news through social media, dangerous as that is, if you are doing that, if you're not pausing, you're just getting this flood of information coming over you where it's like, okay, well, some people group is oppressed somewhere. I can't remember where because I read 25 stories about different, pause and actually reflect on what you just read, what you just watched, what you just listened to. Take time and actually go before God in prayer then and there. If you're able to, it can be a very quick prayer. Like we saw in Nehemiah chapter 2, where he said a super quick prayer before he talked to the king. But actually force yourself to think about what you just saw or watched or read or whatever it may be. Again, so that you're not turning it into this mind-numbing just kind of flood of information,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy to do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, the only one I would add would be just a really beautiful, simple prayer of, Lord, help me view this story with your eyes. Because I can promise you that, God's heart is never numb or cold or detached.
Yeah.
And so a really simple prayer is just that I always recommend to people is, Lord, help me hear this story with your ears. Help me see this footage with your eyes,
Yeah, before you even go into it.
Yep.
So that you're, again.
And that goes back to what you were saying, what's your attitude approaching it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then more specifically, going off the Nigerian oppression one, right? You talked about, hey, does this really break our hearts? And then you talked about, open our mouths, write letters, reach out to the people who decide where foreign aid goes or what foreign policy is, and say, why aren't we doing something about this? How are we working towards this? Then the third one, right? Move your hands, do something about it. So kind of a twofold question. What can I do with my hands tangibly, about stuff happening overseas, thousands of miles away? I think it's probably unlikely for most people that we're going to, take a month of vacation and go over there and help in a refugee camp or anything like that. So what can I do? And what about all of it happening everywhere? Do I have to do this for every place facing this? I don't have the time or the resources to do stuff about the church in Nigeria and the church in Sudan and the church in Asia and the church in what? So how do I know where to do stuff?
Yeah, I think I would say one thing you can very tangibly do with your hands is you can be intentionally informed about these places. There are a ton of organizations like Help the Persecuted, Equipping the Persecuted, that very deliberately keep you informed about what is happening. And the reason you want to be intentionally informed is because what's been overwhelming researching these organizations and these Christians overseas is that the first thing they always ask for is prayer. The first thing they always ask for is prayer. And prayers for boldness. Again, just mind-boggling things where their families are being killed, their friends are being killed, and they're asking us in a safe situation just to pray that they would continue being bold in their faith. And so be intentionally informed. Don't shy away from it, as painful as the news can be about some of these situations. Don't shy away from it. Be intentionally informed, and then pray for these people. And if you're going to say, well, praying's not tangible, then read about prayer, right? But bless the people with your prayers, and knowing what's happening in their churches and knowing what's happening in their groups, in their villages, the way they're being attacked and oppressed and persecuted, and then praying adamantly against that, because again, that's the first thing they always ask for. So we would be foolish to be like, okay, well, prayer, well, what's that actually going to do? It's like, well, that's what they're asking for.
Read Acts, man. You look at the church in Acts, and it's every time they were arrested, the response was prayer.
Yeah.
And prayer for exactly what you just said these organizations ask for, prayer for boldness. This is great. This is our first weapon in the fight.
Yeah. You read where James dies in Acts. James is beheaded by Herod, and their very first response is to go in prayer. And that reality that we are tempted to be like, okay, well, what can we do right now? How can we fight? How can we do something? And the reminder being, no, we need to go to our God. We need to go before our God on behalf of these people. And so number one, be informed and be praying. And number two, consider giving. I think that we tend to view these organizations as just an email we get asking for money sometimes, when we maybe get into that more cynical mindset. It's the commercial on TV where they're like 50 cents a day can protect so and so many people, and we grow cynical to that, we grow cold to that.
Black and white images.
Yeah, but genuinely, there are, you're right, we're not going to take a month of vacation and go serve in a refugee camp, and even if we did, we'd have to be doing it through an organization anyway. There are people in Nigeria right now, boots on the ground. They have an organization. They're making a network that alarms Nigerian Christians when persecution is coming, that they're protecting people. They have doctors with them that go to the scene. they need money. Like, it's a very real, practical, tangible need.
They need gas for their cars. They need medical supplies. They need,
Yeah, they have to bring armed guards with them everywhere they go because they are just as liable to get shot as these Christians are. And so a very tangible way that we can help fight oppression without being there, punching the people oppressing people and stuff, is just to give, to look at our budgets and be like Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah, he did not need the food allowance of the governor. It was a right of his position.
Sure, could have taken it.
And he chose to waive it. And looking at my life, reading that, I was thinking about, okay, well, what am I viewing as a right of my position that I could very easily waive, that could then go straight to helping those being oppressed and those in poverty. And so look at your finances, and maybe you are super generous. That's amazing.
Yep. Praise God.
If you're feeling convicted that you're not, look at your finances and say, well, what am I clinging to that could just as easily go towards helping my brothers and sisters overseas? And obviously then it takes wisdom to pick an organization and all that stuff. Yep. But genuinely asking yourself, am I letting the logistics of it turn into an excuse for not doing it at all?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, cool. How about close to home, right? What does oppression look like? You referenced in your sermon that we frequently in today's culture, society as a whole, holistically, I'm not talking about maybe you individually, but society holistically, we are very quick to label anything we don't like as oppressive, right? Like if you just voice an opinion like, hey, what's the best football team? The Cleveland Browns. Help them being oppressed.
You're oppressing me.
Right. So, but you made, and I thought it was a great point of, just because some people abuse the word oppression doesn't mean that it's not happening at all in actuality. Yeah. So what oppression close to home should I be looking for? Should I be paying attention to? Should I be, asking myself, man, am I bothered by this? Am I doing something about this?
Yeah. I mean, again, understanding that, yes, it is hijacked sometimes, and even understanding where that comes from, looking back historically, how the label of it has changed slightly over time. But again, accepting that, okay, just because some people use it in a nonsensical way doesn't mean that other people aren't being oppressed. And oppression, very simply using the example in Nehemiah, is just people being taken advantage of. People who don't have resources, don't have much of a voice to argue for themselves, don't have much way of staying alive by themselves, being taken advantage of. And so we see that, I mean, honestly, in America, we see that all over the place. We have a huge homelessness issue in our communities, and depending, obviously it can become political sometimes, but we have to admit that those are people who can't defend themselves. Those are people who just don't have resources. Those are people who might not be as violently oppressed, but they're still under the oppression of just being destitute, being poor, and that's the cause that we're called to take up. You see specific ones in Scripture that we are adamantly called to take up, like orphans and widows. James says that true religion is caring for widows.
Those people,
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a church, and not to say that all widows are by nature oppressed, but if you're wondering, well, whose cause am I called to take up super locally? Do you have widows in your church? Do they need care?
Yeah. I think it's fine to play with the definition of oppression a little bit when you're talking about local, right?
We tend to think of it violently.
But just ask yourself kind of, okay, who's in that unfortunate situation? Who's in that situation of want? Who's in that situation of need? Who's in that situation of lack? And it's not because they're just, if you came to me and you were like, hey, could you help me with my groceries? I ran out of money this month. Why? Well, because I bought a third jet ski. Okay, no, I'm not going to help you with your groceries, right? But it's, I'm trying to pay medical bills. We're trying to pay house bills, and I just lost my job. Like, all right, that's a pretty unfortunate situation, right? And so I think, locally, it's more than fair to go, okay, maybe not just violent external oppression, but who is in a situation that is just more than they can bear, and they can't really do anything about it. They're trying, but there's not much they can do. Is there anything I can do to alleviate it? Is there any? And that's Nehemiah, right? Like, I could take this allowance, but I won't, because that'll lessen the burden on you. what can I do to lessen the burden on someone else? And I think what you just said, orphans, widows, homelessness, underfunded school districts, right? Like, do they need volunteers, things like that, like food banks in your area, pregnancy services, like lots of opportunities we have to come alongside the people just under a really heavy burden and say, what can I do to help lift this a little bit?
Yeah, and again, even reframing slightly what we view as generosity, because I understand that, you know, as you list dozens of people groups who need help, some of us can start to clinch and be like, oh, well, am I supposed to just give away everything I have for all these different groups and causes? And redefining generosity as not just money. Like, again, some organizations need money. They need help in that way. But also, some organizations are doing okay, but they don't have any volunteers. And some organizations are doing well on multiple things, and they still have tons of things they would like prayer for, and they would like support in, and they would like, you know, verbal aspiration. And
we can be generous with, there are a couple things we can be generous with. We can be generous with our money. Absolutely. If you're in a position to be generous with your money, be generous with your money. That's obedient towards God. Actually, whatever position you're in, be generous with what you have, right? We can be generous with money. We can be generous with assets. Maybe it's not money. Maybe your elderly parent just died and you got both their cars. Rather than sell them, reach out to a nonprofit and say, hey, could you guys use a car? Could you, right? Like, use a vehicle. Like, maybe you have extra clothes and before you're like, well, let me just have a yard sale or take them to Goodwill or something, right? Like, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but like, reach out to the pregnancy center, the homeless shelter, and be like, hey, could you guys use these kids' clothing or these, you know, things like that. So we can be generous with our money. We can be generous with our assets. We can be generous with our skills. Reach out to any of those places and say, hey, I'm a skilled carpenter. I know how to do plumbing. I know how to do electrical. Do you guys need any work done? You know, do you need any help? Is there anything I can do? We can be generous with our time. And that could be volunteering and serving, which is always great. And time, I would say, would include be generous with your prayer time, be generous with your family time. And, you know, hey, what are we, man, I still think of one of the most impactful, we're coming up on Thanksgiving, right? One of my favorite Thanksgivings was when we went with my grandparents and my uncle and my family. So the 8 of us went, and we worked in a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving Day. Like, and that was really unbelievably meaningful. And fully admit that we, as spoiled kids, at first really bucked against it. You know, I mean, I was like, what do you mean we have to get up early and go downtown, like drive 45 minutes to go to a soup kitchen? Like,
on a precious day off school.
There's football games on right now. You know what I mean? Like, and just the conversations we had with the people who were there and the time we had to connect and to serve. Like, I can promise you, no one in our family as we were leaving was like, yeah, I wish I would have had that time back at home sitting on the couch watching football instead, or watching the parade instead. Like, that was like, oh, that was a way better use of our time. So never hesitate to offer your time. Never hesitate to offer your skills. Never hesitate to offer your money. Never hesitate to offer your assets. Like, what do you have? How can you be generous with it beyond just writing a check?
Yeah, and again, just remembering that it's not, like, as Christians, our call is not simply narrowly fight against violently oppressive regimes. Our call is very broadly take up the cause of the people who find themselves destitute, poor, and needy. And so that, you know, like, we get off the hook for a lot less in that case. And it means that we need to look around and, again, be informed on what's happening, even, you know, in our own cities, that we can participate in and that we can take up their cause in. And again, not labeling it and putting it in this box of, well, that only happens in the Middle East, that only happens overseas. And also not discounting the fact that the things happening over there also deserve our attention and our support. You know, it's that balanced view. It's both, you know. Okay,
well, I'm so focused at home that I don't have time to think about the people over there. Like, no, that's still your extended church family.
Yeah, I can't give to a single overseas, you know, organization or pray for a single group of overseas Christians or whatever it may be. balanced approach, understanding what you can do very tangibly and practically here and what you can do very tangibly and practically there, so that you are following God's example and taking up their cause, and showing that care and that compassion for them.
Yeah. So look for a follow-up video where we discuss something from Nehemiah 5 that didn't come up in the sermon. That's a really fun question. But other than that, thanks so much for joining us. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, we'd love to hear from you like always. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Hey everyone, Pastor Sam. Thanks so much for joining us on a midweek conversation. We hope it challenged you, encouraged you, kept this past Sunday's message at the front of our hearts and minds throughout the week. As always, if you have questions or comments you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Otherwise, you can find more content like this here on our channel. Make sure you subscribe to stay up to date, and we'll see you next time.